Hey, Faith family, Pastor Chad here. Hey, I'm really excited over the last couple of days as we've gone to like the online church and do these devotionals. Just the different comments that I've seen posted on social media, the emails, the text. And I hope these words are encouraging, they're challenging, and causing us to dig deeper with Christ. Hey, a lot of you guys know, or probably hopefully you know, that besides pastoring, one of the other opportunities I have to do is to coach basketball. I love basketball. I love, especially this time of year, which is normally filled with March Madness. One of the things that makes March Madness so great is the underdogs. Where you have big schools that'll play against a school that you may have never heard of before. And somehow, every year, some of these little underdog schools knock off the big boys. It made me start to think a little bit about a great story in the Old Testament about an underdog. If you go and you look and you see in Judges chapter 6, there's this amazing story. The children of Israel had fallen away from the Lord, been rebellious. And they've gone through this time when a neighboring group, the Midianites, were wreaking havoc on them. The children of Israel would work hard to harvest land so they had food to eat throughout the year. But the Midianites, they would come in. And right at the time of harvest, they would steal all of their crops. They would steal their livestock. Basically, anything of value the Midianites could find, they would take. So while the Midianites were coming, the children of Israel were fleeing into the caves for protection. To me, one of the sad parts of this story shows up in Judges chapter 6, verse 7. And it says that and it came to pass. So as this is going on, after a while this taking place, the children of Israel cried unto the Lord. Rather than turning to God, rather than praying and asking for help as a first response, it had kind of become a last resort. But here, the story gets better. You know, we've been using a verse over the last few days, kind of as an overlying theme of God's faithfulness. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 13 reminds us that if we're faithless, He is still faithful. He cannot deny Himself. Right? So even when we're faithless, when we're running from God, when we're away from God, that doesn't change God. God is always faithful. And so, as the people cry out to God, God sends the children of Israel a prophet. And that prophet reminds them of how much God had loved them, how God had taken them out of bondage in Egypt. Just like we talked about the other day with Moses and Joshua. He had delivered them out of Egypt. He had guided them into what became the promised land. That God loved them. God had a plan for them. God had been there for them. Well, the prophet leaves and an angel finds this young man by the name of Gideon. And Gideon's out working. He's threshing some of this wheat, trying to get some stuff together before they have to flee because of the Midianites. And this angel shows up. Man, in this grand declaration, verse 12 of the 6th chapter of Judges, he says, "The Lord is with thee," or "the Lord is with you, you mighty man of valor." Now, listen, here's the deal. That's probably not the way Gideon was typically described. My guess is this, that as the angel makes that declaration, Gideon's probably looking around, trying to figure out who the angel's talking to. And we know that because Gideon himself, in response, says, "I'm from a poor family. And not only am I like from one of the poorest families here in Israel, like I'm the youngest in the family." I mean, in essence, what he's saying to the angel is, "I'm the runt of the litter. Are you sure you're talking to me?" The angel assures him. And I love how the Bible captures those moments of uncertainty, those moments of doubt. I mean, Gideon himself turns to the angel in verse 13. And he says, if the Lord's with us, well, then why is all this going on? I mean, where is all these miracles that our fathers told us about coming out of Egypt? Why does it feel like God's forsaken us? The angel leaves, and Gideon's faced with a decision. Gideon has to decide whether he's going to just continue to do life the way it was, try and thresh his wheat and hide in the hills before the Midianites get there, or he can trust God. And I love how in those moments when he's deciding, in those moments where he's trying to figure out, the Lord himself speaks to Gideon. And he says in verse 23, Judges chapter 6, "Peace be unto you, fear not." God himself encourages him. Now this is where the story gets good. Because Gideon decides, I'm going to trust in the Lord. I'm going to follow him. I'm going to do what he wants me to do. So you get to chapter 7. The Midianites have this big army, 135,000 soldiers, right? Trained, prepared for battle. Gideon decides to get and gather as best an army as he can. So he comes up with an army of 32,000. Significantly smaller than the Midianites. You know what God says to Gideon? Your army's too big. What? 135, 32, it's too big? No way! He says, yeah. And so Gideon narrows it down. He whittles it down to 10,000. Y'all, that's less than 10% of the Midianite army. And he goes before the Lord, and the Lord has a similar response. Gideon, your army's too big. What? So Gideon whittles it down once again. And guys, he ends up with 300. 300. I don't even really want to call them soldiers. They're farmers. But they trust the Lord. And they go to battle. And God brings them out victoriously. Folks, let me remind you, we're faithless. He is still faithful. Zephaniah 3 verse 17 says this, "The Lord our God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love, and he will rejoice over you with singing." I hope today that we can find encouragement in the Lord. I know things are difficult. I know things seem really, really hard. And I'm guessing for many there are questions that are creeping in the back of your mind. God, where are you? What's going on? Let me encourage you to follow the example of Gideon and to trust in him. I pray right now that God is calling us all to be great people of valor. I love you guys. I'm here for you.